All right.
Jay, wait. You're a new kid, right? I'm from North Carolina. You play ball, Mike? I play baseball.
Wait a minute. Don't tell me it didn't do it. It's not doing it. Hold up. Don't tell me I got it right. Okay. It's saying live. It's live. Let me see. It's not saying live like normal. You know, they change stuff around.
I see it up in the corner there. It says it's
All
live.
Okay, because it doesn't say on my end. Like I said, they changed some stuff. I just was telling you that. So
can you record it?
Yes,
as well?
I mean, is it saying live to you?
Yes. Are you recording it? Are you recording it? Because I don't see the green button that says record.
Yeah, normally I don't record it at the same time. I go live with it.
Okay.
But yeah, it's recording now. But you see the live on your end?
Yes.
You see the live on your end?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll just see if you see it on YouTube, because you know it takes a minute to get there.
Right.
Jay, wait. You're a new kid, right? I'm from North Carolina. So you play ball, Mike? I play baseball. Baseball. My name's Big Mike in the Wood. It's not what you think it is. Nah, Inglewood, California. That's where I grew up. Me and my boys, Steve, Roland, Slim. Well, I never thought I'd see the day Roland get married. We got 3 hours till this wedding kicks off, and can't nobody find us.
Tell that fool he could at least face me like a man.
Hey, Mike, I dare you to grab her boot. One. Remember the bet? Remember the bet, Mike? No, I remember the bet. Do you remember the bet? Oh! I'm thinking about all them school dances I used to have.
All right, y'all. Welcome to More Than a Movie. I'm going to put on my earbuds just to make sure, my AirPods, just to make sure you can hear me clearly. All right, welcome. I am Kendell Lenice, and this is More Than Just a Movie, where Leroy Mckenzie and I break down classic Black films. This is a spoiler alert, because if you haven't seen the movies, then we are going to spoil it for you. But we still to go back and watch the movies. So if you haven't seen these movies in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, then go tell your mama that she just did you a disservice, because she didn't have you watch these classic Black films. Welcome, Leroy. You ready?
Yes, ma'am. Let's do this.
All right.
We're going to the wood.
Yes, to the wood. So The Wood, that's the movie we're talking about this week. I believe this is episode 11. We just keep pushing them out every Wednesday. So if this is your first time watching More Than Just a Movie, where we break down classic Black films, welcome. Make sure you share this with your friends and families. But most importantly, please subscribe below. Please, it's so important that you do that. And if you love Black movies like Leroy and I love Black movies, then this is the place for you. We review movies differently than everybody else, because as a life coach, you know, I'm throwing in this as a speaker and author. Leroy throws in that. And we talk about real life issues within the movie, as well as, of course, talking about the movie. All right, so today, again, we're talking about The Wood, which was released July 16th, 1999, 22 years ago. And 25, now when it was released at the movies, it made 25 million US dollars, okay? And that's huge for a Black movie. And as you see the trend, I talk about that in the beginning, and what these movies made, which means that we want to see us on the screen. So we support the movies. And even when we're talking about Coming to America a few weeks ago, and the new one, that just even on Amazon Prime, Eddie Murphy broke records with that. So of course, Black folks want to see Black folks. All right, so The Wood starred Richard T. Jones. Let me tell y'all, that's my crush. And that has been, I have two crushes, and that's one of my crushes, and he's been my crush for a very long time. It's just something about him. You know, everybody married, how he treated Jill Scott's character, but that was a character. So Richard T. Jones, he played Slim in The Wood. Then you have Omar Epps, who played Mike. You have Taye Diggs, who played Roland. So it was mainly about these three characters, these three brothers, which are best friends. And Roland is getting married, and Roland is afraid to get married. And later on in the movie, we'll talk about that, who he was going to marry in the movie. So it's a coming of age. They flash back to when they were young, and they go back and forth in Inglewood, California. That's what The Wood is. So it's about Inglewood, California, and this relationship between these three young Black men. So then also Sean Nelson was in the movie, Melinda Williams, Tamala Jones, Lisa Ray, and my girl, Sanaa Lathan. All right, The Wood, Leroy. Have you seen The Wood? How many times have you seen The Wood?
Oh, I mean, I've watched it over and over again, and it's actually one of I guess my top 5 or whatever, because I got like
really?
Love Jones. Love Jones is of course my all-time just favorite. Love and Basketball. What's one of the other ones I got in there? I think Boomerang. Actually, if you could pick one of the ones that we've done, they a couple of them are in my top 5, but The Wood is definitely one of my top 5 favorite movies, just because of what the movie is about. It's like you said, it's that coming of age movie. It talks about 3 brothers staying their friendships, that friendship that they developed over the years and everything like that. And then now that they are, that they're grown and become adults, they're reminiscing, about their childhood, and that's what me and my buddies do. We talk about, growing up in the we'll get into the dumb things that we do as young boys and men and everything like that, and just the relationships that we've had, just all that good stuff. And that's what that's what this movie, The Wood, kind of brought back to me. It's that one of those feel good movies that you can look back on and you just be like, yeah, I don't know what we was doing. What were we doing? What was we thinking?
Right.
I'm talking from the hairstyles to all of the stuff that we'll get into as we talk about the movie and everything like that, all that stuff. The music, and I know you're gonna do the music thing too. So all of that, man, all of that.
Yes, and that was a movie. And I like to see this movie because oftentimes you see women and young girls, the coming of age stories. I mean, you see men too when you think about the Inkwell, and you see Lorenz Tate, which we should do also one of these episodes. But you see his coming of age, and you have the Boys in the Hood, if you will. That was kind of a coming of age as well. So I like when I see the men have that camaraderie and that friendship. So it starts with Mike. He from North Carolina. Remember, he said North Carolina.
Know, right?
Where you from? North Carolina. and he comes. And Slim and Roland are already tight, and then they welcome Mike from North Carolina, and he's like, I like it here, and then he forms his group, his homeboys, and they stay friends from, I think it started in junior high school through high school, and then through adulthood with that. So when you think about The Wood, and you talked about like being a guy, and you said, okay, well, wow, these are 3 guys, 3 Black guys, and they're going to be in a movie called The Wood. Does that make you, proud when you see trailers telling 3 Black men's stories?
Yeah, and you got to think, this was 1999, and this is in that era, like you and I have always said, when you had these positive Black movies that they were putting out all through the 90s. They were putting out these positive Black movies of brothers, because there was a call for it. There was a call for movies that had us as professionals, showed us as professionals, that showed us more than that, than the John Singleton, which was part of it too. There has to be a balance, because we know that especially these were real life. These were real life movies. You could see, and that's the thing that when I was thinking about this movie, and pretty much the ones that we've done, you can see yourself or someone that you know, the characters in these movies because especially us as boys growing up, we had the Slim, we had the Roland, and we had the Mike. There was one of us in our crew that was like that was like that. So you grew up knowing these kind of fellas. It was like, yeah, that was so and so in our group. That was so and so in our group. So when I see it or I think
Yeah.
about it and I watch it, that's what I think about. I'm like, yeah, it definitely was good to see on screen. Three positive black brothers. That it wasn't about shooting and killing. It was, or somebody's baby mama and all of that stuff. It was about growing up. It was about
It
growing
was
up.
about stealing. It was about stealing mints for the dance, so their breath can be fresh when they go holler at the
Exactly.
girls.
How many numbers did you
And
get?
that's the only crime that they committed. Right? That
No,
was the only crime
that's
that
not
was
a crime
committed
though.
in
But
this movie. Well,
but
from these guys.
but
No,
that's real.
right. But that's
But
why I'm
that's
joking.
real
I'm
though.
saying to taking the right. But
But
that's what I'm
that's
saying.
real.
It's not, I'm joking saying if the crime was taken, because we're not talking about Stacy and them and what Stacy three men. They just done what you got. And how Roland breaks it down on what kind of mint to get in the
I
gum.
know, right?
That was the funny part. You want to talk about that
Oh,
in the store?
that was hilarious. That
He was
that
like,
was that was
because of this,
hilarious.
he was polishing over the gum, the mint. So
Yeah,
talk
that was
about it for a minute when they were in the convenience store before the
yeah.
dance.
Yeah, that was definitely a funny part in the movie because he gave the breakdown, like you said, the breakdown of the mints and what the mints meant and all that good stuff. Yeah, that. But like I said, it makes you think about some of the things that we talked about and things that we did growing up. When we were growing up as kids and stuff like that. That we actually thought we were saying something and doing something.
But it's so funny. Look at Lana,
I know,
you
right?
know, he was really like intrigued. Like he done moved to Inglewood and he was intrigued with how Roland was breaking down things. So can we just talk about the casting? How my
Mm,
boy Richard T. Jones and the man that played the young boy that played him, the
uh-huh.
young boy that played Tay Diggs as Roland, the
Hmm.
young boy that played Mike, Slim, Mike, and Roland. Just the casting was amazing
Yeah,
because it really looked like it could have been them
right.
in their teenage years.
Absolutely. And I guess that's what who I'm not
Cause
sure
you,
what you call
cause you know,
the person I know it's the director, but
the
also
casting, the
yeah, the
casting
casting
director,
director.
the
They
casting director.
yeah, when they look for
Mm-hmm.
someone, you kind of need a certain look because you want the younger person to look
Yeah,
somewhat like that old what the older person is going to look like,
yeah,
and being able to actually see that, that's a skill
yeah,
in and of itself. You know what I mean? To
yeah.
kind of see that
It
and
is.
anticipate that. So, and I think
Cause some of
the
those Lifetime movies, I'm like,
really,
how they gonna change the color of the
I
man?
know, right?
Like how they gonna change the color of the woman? Like that don't even go. Like that don't look like that could have been them when they was little.
But you have things like that, and a lot of most of the other movies that we've talked about, they've done a great job of casting. And I know that
Mm-hmm.
your boys, the New Edition story, they did a great job of that too. The younger and the
Yes,
older ones, they did a fantastic job of
perfect. Mm-hmm.
connecting them together and making sure that there was this semblance of that. Oh yeah, I could see them being the younger, that younger person, or see them being this older playing the older, person and everything like that. So the Wood did a good job of that. So that's interesting. When you do movies like this, when you have a reflection or a younger person and that person growing up, how they're able to do that, how they're able to do that and everything like that. So that's really interesting.
Because it is because of how they said, okay, this person may age or look this, and not to say, because Black folks, we have, of course, an array of different complexions, and sometimes you are lighter when you.
Right.
I know me. Sometimes I'm lighter. Sometimes I'm browner. It depends. So that's really not the thing. But you can't go all the way
know,
to the
right?
left, all the way to the right. Like you got to still say, okay, this could be this person when they're growing up, and you can kind of see it because with them. And then even carrying the nuances and the whole attitude and the vibes of each other. They had that down pat, didn't they? Especially when I think about Slim, Richard T. Jones.
Yeah.
And I think about him and how he was still carrying it, even Roland, like all of them. So before we go further, of course, let's talk about the soundtrack, as we often do. The soundtrack had Outkast, Mystical, Blackstreet, The Roots, R.I.P. DMX. And Joe's song, I Want to Know, that was on the Woods soundtrack, as well as they displayed one of my favorite duets of all time, Luther and Cheryl Lynn, If This World Were Mine.
Yeah, we're going to talk
and
about
then
that
my
too,
boys,
and the significance of that
Houdini.
song.
All right, come on, let's get right to it. Let's go ahead. Go ahead. You start it off. Let's talk about it.
Well, it's two things when I think about that song in the movie. Of course, it's one of my all-time favorite Luther songs too. You can't have Luther without that song. But in the movie, there's a scene when, and this is after they come from the store, and well, we didn't already gave the spoiler alert, but the store, the corner store that they're in is getting robbed by what's her name? Melinda Williams' character Alicia. Her
Yeah,
brother is robbing this store.
Stacy.
Right, robbing the store, and this is after Stacy has the encounter with Mike at the school because he felt up he felt up Stacy's sister in class, and she told him that she was gonna get her brother on him. So they're in the store and they're getting their Tic Tacs, and Stacy and his boy are robbing the store. Of course, they got the mask on, so they don't, Mike and them don't know who it is originally. And then they say his name, of course, and all that stuff. But after all of that stuff, and even the encounter with the police, they give him, he gives Mike a ride to the prom. He gives him a ride to the prom, and they're sitting in the car. And Stacy asked Mike, he's like, "You really like my sister, don't you?" And he like, "She all right. She okay. I think she pretty."
Right. He did say
I love that was hilarious.
He did.
But
that was Mike from North Carolina.
Yeah, exactly. But Stacy respects him because he stood up to him and everything like that at the schoolyard. But he tells him as he's getting out of the car, he says, if they happen to play the song, "If This World Were Mine," he says she loves that song. Get you a dance. And I was like, that's cool right there. I was like, that's respect right there. But I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
So he goes on in the dance, and I'll let you take it from there when they get into the dance.
So let's talk about the dance, but before that, let's talk about how Mike was preparing for the dance. When he was dancing and his mama came in. Let's talk about that part. How he was like, "What you want?" I was like,
Mike from North Carolina couldn't dance a bit. He had no kind of rhythm.
And his mom said,
"What are you doing?"
I think, right. What are you doing? But she knew it had to be for a girl.
Yeah.
Because he was trying. So then when he got to the dance where you were saying, so he got to the dance, that song came on, Melinda Williams is looking Alicia. And of course she danced with Mike, and he gets his total life. He was trying to be fresh for a minute, or making sure he was doing the right things, because even though Stacy gave the stamp of approval, he wasn't fooling with Stacy, and then Alicia wasn't playing no games too, because she was a chick from Inglewood,
right.
She wasn't playing games. But speaking of casting, that was the only casting part I did not like. how did Melinda Williams grow up to be Sanaa Lathan?
Yeah, I think you're right about that. But I think Melinda Williams might be a little younger. But they looked around the same age, if you ask me.
But they don't look alike.
No, not at all. Not at all.
But
not
she grew up
yeah.
to be her. So
Yeah.
that was the old Alicia and young Alicia. So
Yeah.
they missed the mark on that one. They got it with the boys, but I guess after when they were doing the women, they was like, let's just get them.
Yeah. You're right about that. You're right. You definitely.
But
right
they missed the mark with that. So some trivia. Omar Epps and of course Sanaa Lathan were both in this movie. So what was the other movie that Omar Epps and Sanaa Lathan were in?
Exactly.
Love and Basketball.
Yeah, and here's the connection too. You got to think Sanaa and Tay Diggs were in a movie together too.
Brown Sugar.
No,
and
well,
the best
yes,
man. And the best man.
Right. Exactly. Yep. So they all kind of intertwined. In with I guess that acting circle and everything like that.
Yes. And also DeAndre Brooks, who played Stacy, Antoine Tanner, and Melinda Williams, they were all in the movie Sunset Park, which came out a few years before that in 1996.
Okay.
Also, what was it? So throughout, I'll give some trivia about that movie, the movie The Wood. But the first, remember that they had all of these bets, and we're talking about young boys, and I bet you can't do this. I bet you can't do this. I bet you can't get this girl. I bet you can't get that number. Is that how young boys really are? Because I remember young boys being like that when I was young.
That was between the phone numbers and the bet. You remember the bet?
Yes.
Remember
the
bet?
Butt? Butt? You mean grabbing the butts?
No, not the butt too, but I said the bet. They had a bet of who would sleep with what girl first. Remember that? And they had to put the money in the money in the jar.
Yeah.
And the first one that slept with whatever girl would get the money. But that honestly, that's dumb stuff that young boys do. Even down to, like you said, they daring Mike, and they knew Alicia was going to smack the mess out of him when he went by and tried to grab her butt and everything like that. But
let me tell you something. I remember those days. They knew. I remember those days in junior high, and I almost beat the brakes off of this boy that went by and grabbed my butt. But later to find out that as he got older, he killed somebody. He killed his mom.
Oh no!
How about that? How about that? The boy, I never forget the boy that was touching my butt in junior high school. I remember he did it, and I turned around and I was like, fighting him and stuff, because guys always do that. They will pop the bra strap, or they would slap the butt. In junior high school.
Yeah. Yeah, the
things that would do, and they would. Right, they always say, well, girls mature faster than guys. I guess, because they run around still grabbing bra straps and touching booties.
Right.
Was that you, Leroy? Were you tapping booties?
No, because here's the thing about me. I was always blessed where my parents wasn't putting up with it. I wasn't trying to get a beat down by my parents because they ain't play. They ain't play that. They weren't going to get called to the school talking about Leroy and touch somebody's booty. Yeah. Mama wasn't playing that, and my dad wasn't trying to have it either. So, that wasn't going to happen. And everything like that. So, no, now, like I said, I knew guys that would do dumb stuff like that. But I never felt like I had to do things to be a part of certain groups of cliques.
The in crowd. Yeah.
You either liked me or you either liked me and hung around for me for who I was, or you just didn't. And I didn't care either way. And I'm still that way to this day.
Still that way.
Look, hey, I am who I am, and I'm not gonna put on a front just so that I can be friends with somebody or put on a front just so that I can, hang with you or do this and do that and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's
because when you think about right, and it's not, but when you think about then, it was fun. It was light when people do that, but they would not get away with it now. Now it would be all kind of issues or problems. They'd be probably taking a little boy out with handcuffs if he touched a girl's butt now.
Yeah.
It's a lot different than it was in the 80s.
And the 80s.
You know, because in the 80s, it was like things were brushed off and said boys would be boys, or they just do that, or that's a part of that coming of age, and it's no big deal. Now they'd be like hauling people off to jail because you can't be touching nobody now in no kind of way. And back then you could touch people's shoulders, hug people. You better be careful now, because that's a lawsuit. Yeah. So let's talk about something else, and let me ask you what you think about this. So when Roland had cold feet about getting married, he went to his ex-girlfriend Tanya's house and to get some clothes and to change and regroup and all of that. So all the fellas went over Tanya's house, and Tanya was like, "Oh no. Like, I know how y'all was back then. I ain't fooling with y'all." And they was like, "No, we need you." So what you think about him getting ready to get married, getting cold feet, but saying, "You know what, I can still rely on my ex," and going over there? Yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that that was a different. I think that was a nice twist to it, that it was his ex-girlfriend that they went to, and they all evidently knew. They knew each other, so they knew not just she not only knew Roland, she knew, she knew Slim and she knew Mike. So she
wasn't fooling with all of them.
Right, she knew all of them, so she knew she was she was probably one of the ones that had her crew, and they had their crew, and they all knew each other and everything like that. And she had gotten with Roland, so that was her boyfriend at the time, and she knew how Slim and Mike acted too. So she was like, "Look, I'm done with that phase of my life. Y'all need to go on with that." But they were like, "We need your help." And she evidently had enough of a friendship and relationship.
Yeah, that
he
finally
said, she was like, "All right, but y'all gonna hang out outside around back."
Right. And she holds them off. Remember, she gave them the hose. "You ain't coming to use my shower, messing up my good towels." Right. And she gave them the hose.
Right. She was like, "No, I thought that was funny, but I'm gonna tell you, if you remember that scene when they were I guess hosing each other down, and you got for the ladies, they got to see a little bit
booty
of the fellas, and you see Pamela go like this.
Yeah, because she was still looking.
I think that was real. I think that was real. She was just like, "Oh," I thought that was a really funny scene, and she was just
laughing because she was laughing too.
Yeah, I really thought she was feeling that scene as far as it being really funny, and they were like, "Wow, it was really funny," and she got a kick out of it and everything like that. So, yeah,
it was funny. So then I'm looking at what was I gonna say? So I'll read that trivia later. All right. So okay, going through the movie and they meet Mike from North Carolina, and he comes to Inglewood, and then his friends kind of accept him in there. And even in the beginning, when he was getting ready to get jumped, like that's how he knew those were his boys, because they, even though just meeting him, they were ready to fight for him or with him to kind of help him out. But they did show, because afterwards they were like,
afterwards they wasn't trying to mess with Stacy, because they knew Stacy was in a gang. They wasn't trying.
But what they wanted to, like, you could see that they wanted to, and they cared for him. And then afterwards, they talk about what they would have done and all of that. But you said they weren't messing with Stacy.
They wasn't trying to mess with Stacy. Trust me. No,
now with that little Jerry curl.
I know, right? They talked a good game after he was gone, and after Mike had actually got a punch in on Stacy and everything like that. But yeah,
but that was real too. That was real too. Yeah. That they they wanted to, but they were still afraid. And then that talking junk. Like, that's what they did. And that's what the young boys do, just talking junk, and that's what, and I thought that was real. And you do, like you said in the beginning, you do have every guy in the group, like with your male friend groups, like that are like each one. Like you got Slim, which was kind of when he got older, the kind of grounded one. Well, actually, both of them were, because Mike was very grounded,
Oh yeah.
and Wood was, and I said Wood, and Slim was a fool, but he still, he was still Slim, and I like that they still use some of his same things from when he was younger, like in the personality, because some things still stay, even if you mature.
Yeah,
some things still stay. And then Roland was Mike was the level-headed one still, which was Omar Epps later on. And so what happens in the movie, for those that don't see it, he's afraid to get married, or he's getting cold feet. So they have this whole day of, flashing back to at the pizza place where they used to go when they were little, flashing back and doing the same thing, spinning the pizza, like, who you got? Like, I thought that was so authentic of boys. And you being the only man on the panel when they're talking about, okay, what woman you have? Did you used to do that? And who was your woman? Who with the pizza spun your way?
I never did that with. Honestly, I never did that with my friends. And like I told you,
who was your crush though? Who was your crush? That's what I mean. Like, who was your crush? Not necessarily spin the pizza, but every boy had like a childhood celebrity crush.
I'm thinking about at that time, like you were saying, Richard T. Jones. Honestly, mine was Neil Long.
Okay.
Neil Long. Yeah, Neil Long was.
What about growing up? What about when you were younger?
Don't
say Thelma from Good Times.
Janet Jackson. And Jane Kennedy. Jane Kennedy. I loved Jane Kennedy. I love
even as a young boy.
Oh yeah. She was definitely a because she was the first not just woman. I think she was the first Black woman sports analyst on TV.
Yeah. She was.
She was beautiful.
Yes, she was. Yeah.
You got a woman that talks sports and knew football. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And pretty.
Right.
Yeah.
I was just like, Thelma, I don't think there was a young Black boy that didn't love Thelma from Good Times.
Thelma. And they like Janet Jackson too. When Janet Jackson was
Janet was always cute. Janet was always,
Thelma.
Yeah, but Thelma was just Thelma.
Yeah, Thelma. Thelma was looking right on Good Times. All the guys say that. My husband was talking about Thelma the other day.
Yeah.
But
to this day, she's still beautiful. To this day,
yeah, she is.
She is. I got a chance
really
to meet her once at a book signing that she did.
Yeah, because she wrote that book about her father. Yeah.
Got a chance to take a picture with her and everything. It was just she's just still as beautiful as she was back then.
Were you stuttering when you saw Thelma? When you saw Bernadette?
No, I was actually just pleased to meet her, and you get that that starstruck kind of feeling or whatever. It's like, wow, this is, and you try not to stereotype, that's the role that she'll always be known for.
Right.
What you want to call about, by her name or real name, Bernadette, and that color.
Right.
That was the only thing I was worried about was calling her Thelma instead of Bernadette.
It's so funny because she was on my favorite show of all time, Girlfriends, right? And she was on Girlfriends, so she was going on a date. She was supposed to be Maya's cousin.
Right.
So he had set her up because he was talking about her. Maya, if you know Girlfriends, the running joke is that everybody's her cousin, right? And he was talking about Thelma. And of course, Maya was like, well, that's my cousin. He was like, oh, you could set me up on a date with Thelma. And then she was like, Bernadette Stannis. So they went on the date, and William goes on, and William's talking about Mad Dog and how she was marrying, the African prince member. And she was like, my name is Bernadette. Thelma was a character that I played. And she kept saying that. And then they were sitting there silent. Right. So then she was like, okay, well, do you know eBay tried to marry, and do you know he had a harem? She started talking about characters because the date was going so boring. And because they weren't talking about Thelma, so then they started talking about that. And I thought that was cute, especially what you just said, that people are always still going to remember her as Thelma. All right. So The Wood, and then we talk about it being a coming of age story, and they make a bet to see who's going to sleep with who, and Mike says he's going to sleep with Alicia, and they were like putting all the money in. They were like, that's the top prize. Like, if you can do that, And then, they end up in her room and This World Was Mine is playing, and she realizes he doesn't have a condom. So she says, my brother has condoms. So he got to go into the gang members' room to go in his nightstand to get a condom, right? And then sneak back with his pants around his ankles to go back into the room. So then he goes in, gets it, and then he comes back into the room. Now, you want to take it from there, Leroy?
Well, they actually do wind up that particular time. They wind up sleeping together. Now, I think it was both of theirs first time. I believe.
Yeah.
I believe it was both of their first times, and that's what I loved about like this movie and most of the other ones. Like I said, you can relate to it because it makes you think about, what your certain things, certain kind of points in your life that you can think about. Your ex-girlfriend, the girlfriend you had in high school, the first time going to your prom. That's what this movie made me think about, and their first time, and just how clumsy we were, and we had granules of, oh, it's going to be and it's going to be this way and that way. And usually it's interesting. It's usually that experience of it being your first time is usually different for the young boy than it is for the young girl. I think. I don't know, but a lot of times when you hear guys talk about their first time and everything like that, it's kind of fast, and you don't know what's going on. You get these funny feelings going on and everything like that. And then you have to talk about this, where when I've heard women talk about it, it's sometimes when they talk about their first time, it's painful, for them and everything like that. So
yeah,
two different experiences.
It is
with
different
that and everything like that. It's different. So they have that experience together, and then they're like, well, what do we do now? She's like,
right.
they talk about the prom coming up and everything like that. and
But it was that innocence.
Yeah, exactly. She was, well, I guess you got to get a new suit now.
To go. But I like the fact that he kind of still protected her honor. When the guys asked him, remember, he wasn't really so forthcoming because he really liked her.
Right.
You
Same
know.
thing. And he didn't. Well, he never told them that he slept with. He let one of the. I forgot which one he said. Which one of the ones won the bet.
Yeah.
He slept with Alicia before the other two had slept with one of one of the other girls or whatever. But he never told them about that and everything like that.
Yeah, and I thought that was admirable because, and even growing up to Roland as Omar Epps, he still had that same integrity. Like he still was kind of the glue. He still was that level-headed, more mature one than Slim and Roland. Although they were grown and still mature, like even when they were at the pizza place and they were talking about it and they were still goofing, you can tell that they brought the kid back out of them.
Right.
And even Mike too, but he was just still the mature one of the three. Right. And still kind of that level head. And I love the fact that as they grew up, like their mothers were still friends. They were still, a family because they had grown into a family. And I thought that was really nice to see when with Black men and Black families still being able to do that. And like you said, no killing and none of that, even with the Stacy part and just showing that peace. They had to show some of that piece because it is Inglewood, California. So they wanted to keep it authentic, but then there's this other side too, and I like the way that they did that. All right, I'm going to give you some trivia, so you're going to have to answer some questions to see if you know, since this is one of your favorite movies. I mean, if it's wrong, it's wrong. If it's right, it's right. We're just having some fun. All right, so we talked about this. Where did Mike move from? Do you remember the city? We know North Carolina, but do you remember the city?
What else? Why am I thinking? Was it Raleigh?
No.
It wasn't Raleigh?
Winston-Salem, North Carolina.
Oh, Winston-Salem. Okay.
All right. So All right, this is a funny one. What was Slim's real name? Do you remember? Because remember they were joking him?
Yeah, no, oh man, you got me with that one because I don't remember his name. Oh
And I'm
wow.
answering the same time you're answering too. So the choice, okay, I'm gonna give you the choices,
Okay.
and then we'll see. Was it Alfonso? Whether it was it Lavinio? Was it Bernard? Or was it Rufus?
It was Lavidio.
Yeah,
It was Lavidio.
yeah, yeah. And I don't have the answers here. Me and Leroy are just the answers, but it was. All right. So in the beginning of the movie, Roland was nowhere to be found for his wedding. Where was he? The store. We talked about this. The ex-girlfriend's house, at his house, or the park.
No, he had gone to his ex-girlfriend's house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What was the best thing for a 14-year-old boy that was like, let me see. What was the best thing for a 14-year-old boy that was like a game? We talked about this, so pay attention. Going to school dances, hanging out, playing basketball, or grabbing butts.
Grabbing butts.
Really a game. They really made it a game. That's the funny part.
Yep. That was the
That's some
silly
hood
thing.
stuff right there. That's some hood little boy stuff. Let's make this a game.
Silly games we as young boys. That's true.
I love it.
You'd be like immature. You just that's
I love it.
That's the dumb stuff. That's dumb stuff.
Little boy
stuff. Growing up as a little young boy, you just be like,
I love it.
Like really.
Let's make it a game. Because I would imagine with boys, everything is a game and competition.
Yeah, pretty much. We used to torture the girls, torture you all. Y'all, like you said, y'all got it growing up with the young boy, with those of us that that growing up in the 80s. Y'all got it because we would go from hitting you all to, like you said, grabbing your butts to just to wanting to kiss you all in the same day.
And then they wonder why we don't understand men to this day.
Right.
Y'all, 1 minute y'all like us, 1 minute y'all don't, 1 minute y'all want to grab our butt, next minute you don't.
No, throughout all of that, you only did that to the girls that you liked. What girl do you know that the guy's gonna agree to go grab her butt and he didn't like her?
Yeah, right, and pull her hair and all that because you like it. Love taps.
You liked it. It's the craziest thing. I'll never understand it. I never get it. That's just like with women. They'll tell you all, I've heard this before, that the girls would tell each other that if you like the guy, you got to ignore him so that he would. It's
the foolish games that people play when they really like each other.
I'm like,
yeah, be mean to them, ignore them, and like you said, grab the butt, do like all of these little things that people do when they like somebody instead of just saying, I like you.
The little notes, I like you, do you like me?
Check, yes or no?
Yes, no,
or maybe so. Yes, maybe no, so. Or maybe so.
You know what I'm saying? It needs to be that simple. It needs to be that simple.
Hilarious. That's hilarious. All right, let's go with the next question. All right. Why did Stacy get pulled over by the police? Was he speeding? Did he run a stop sign, broken tail light, or ran a red light?
It was a tail light, I think.
I think so too. Yeah.
I think it was a tail light that stopped him. But it was funny because that stop, when Stacy stopped, he had his boy with him, of course, and they were all nervous. He was nervous.
He was whining
because they had just robbed the store. And his boy was in the back. He was crying. Oh, his boy was in the front. I'm sorry. His boy was in the front of him. And he was like, man, shut up. So Mike is the one that saved him from actually the cop moving, kind of catching him.
Isn't that something? The same crime that they made was the same crime that saved them. It's crazy. Right.
So Stacy was like, when the cops left, he tells his boy, when Mike and them, he was like, get in the back. He was like, get your butt in the back. He's like, Mike, come on up here and sit. Come on up here and sit next to me, because Mike was the only one that didn't flinch about the police and actually covered for him when they were getting ready to go search the car and everything like that. So
because he coughed, then he coughed, and Mike
he coughed and distracted them.
Yeah.
And then they got they got another call. They got in the
from the
car.
robbery that they did. So it was the
Right.
one that they did save them
Right.
from going to jail, which was crazy. So this leads to this next question, because you kind of answered it.
Okay.
Who did Mike get the nickname Big Mike from?
Oh yeah, no, that was Stacy. He called him.
Yep,
I think after that, he called him. He started calling him Big Mike.
yep, yep. So Alicia's favorite song was Luther Vandross, "If This World Were Mine," true or false?
No, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Mike's first dance was with Alicia, true or false?
That's true. And that was the only dance that he had all night. It was the only dance and the only phone number he got that whole night.
Yeah. Because when a man got tunnel vision and he wants what he wants, that's what he sees and that's what he wants. And it's I guess the hunt, they say men are hunters, right?
Yep. He wasn't interested in anybody else except for Alicia. She was
Right.
the only one. And then even his boys, when because they had the competition to see who could get the most numbers after the dance, when they were comparing who had the most numbers, and Mike was like, "Well, I only got one," and Alicia wrote it in his hand.
They was like, "You won.
You won. That's worth 2 numbers right there."
But I love the fact that they came out from the dance day in the courtyard and they how they was moving, especially Roland was moving, all happy. And I love the fact that they were serious about this stuff. Yeah. Like the numbers and weren't they serious about this competition?
Like you said, it's competition. It's like, okay, I'm gonna win this competition.
they were serious, and that's what was so funny watching, because they were serious about their little competition and their little bets. And I thought that was I don't want to say cute, I guess, for boys, but that was really it seemed real,
Yeah, it was
like
authentic. That was definitely authentic. And like you said, that era, and I don't know if any other era has experienced that, because like you said, right now you take kids that are that age, that what 17, 16 to 18 year range, and can you imagine them, like you said, trying to a young boy trying to grab a young girl's butt these days?
It ain't going down like that.
Yeah. So, the times have definitely changed, and growing up in the 80s was a different era for us. It was a different time. It was a time of, like you said, a time of innocence. It was a time of just doing dumb stuff, but also at the same time learning to and experiencing things too. Experiencing different things too. So
it was a whole different vibe.
Yeah, it was just a whole different vibe for us growing up in the 80s and everything.
That. So, All right. So next question: why did the fellas go back to Tanya's house? They left something to get cleaned up. Roland wanted to get one last kiss, or they wanted to bring her pot back?
No, they went there because they were on their way to the church. And of course, Roland, for those that haven't seen it, he was hungover. So he had too much to drink.
And what'd he do?
He was in the back seat of Slim's car. And that was funny too. And he's like, I gotta throw up. And Roland was like, no, we ain't pulling over. We gotta go. And Mike looks back at Roland and tells Slim, dude, he don't look too good. You might want to pull over. And before he can pull over,
Lavinio was not having that.
Yeah, Roland throws up in the back seat of the car all over not only his clothes, he threw up over Mike's clothes, and he threw up over Roland's clothes. And Roland was hot. Roland was ready to beat. Slim was ready to beat Roland up his own self.
Yes, he was.
Like,
yes, he was.
So they had to wind up going to taking all of their. That's why they had to go back to his ex's house, because they had to get cleaned up, and then they went to the cleaners. Yeah, they had to take the clothes to the cleaners.
So, who was at the cleaners? Who was the lady at the cleaners?
Yeah, that was my girl from a different world, Don Lewis. That was her.
Yeah.
She was like, because they were like, well, we need you to take care of these clothes, and of course it smells like throw up, so you can imagine. And she's
She
like,
like, ooh.
she was like, we don't do miracles here and whatnot. So, they were like, she says, all right, well, we're gonna do what we do, do what we can do, come back. And I think she told him an hour. I think she was like, yeah, come back in an hour or whatever. And we'll take care of it and stuff like that. So that was why they had to go over to Roland's ex's back to her house and everything prior to going to the cleaners. So yeah.
To get showered. Meanwhile, the bride is waiting. The bride to be, she don't know. We'll talk about who the bride was later, but she don't know what's happening. She's thinking he's not doing it. She's thinking he got cold feet. The parents everybody's parents were waiting. Everybody was waiting for this wedding to start. And they over Tanya's house trying to get clean. They over there getting pizza, they reminiscing the whole time while they waiting for this wedding to go on. And people were once again coming to Big Mike, hey, well, what's happening? So I thought that was interesting. All of this was happening while you got the bride to be waiting, like, where the heck is my groom? And he ain't nowhere to be found. And they weren't answering. It wasn't no cell phones and no texting really. So they weren't doing all of that. So they didn't know where the heck these men were. And then of course, later we'll talk about that, where of course they blamed Roland. No, they blamed remember they blamed Slim. Like, what did Slim got them doing? Blaming Slim for the absence or the cold feet of Mike. Right. All right. So okay, this is a good one. How many bets did the guys have? Do you remember how many bets they had?
Let me see. They had the sleeping with the girls was 1. They had the phone numbers was 2. I think it was just the 2.
Let's see.
Am I missing one?
I thought the 2.
Yeah, I think it's just the 2. I think those are no, and well, I don't know if it was a bet or not, but grabbing Alicia's butt. I don't know if that was a bet or if they made an actual bet on that. Well, I think they did. I think they bet $1. I think that
on that. Oh, they did. They did.
I think they bet $1 on that, on him going and grabbing her butt. So I guess those are three bets.
But you know what? I have to go back. I think Big Mike was from Charlotte, because wasn't he wearing a Charlotte hat?
I think he did have on a Charlotte hat. I think he had a Hornet. Or is either a hat or a jacket, one of the two.
So let's go with Charlotte, because I think that was Charlotte.
Okay.
So let's see how we rate on this quiz. How many bets? So I'm not sure if it was 2 or 3. That's the only one I wasn't sure of.
Yeah, I think it's
so. Let's do. Okay, so let's see how we did. No, I was right the first time. Winston-Salem. Okay, I was right, Winston-Salem, and then it was and then Mike wasn't Alicia's first dance. He danced with another girl before her, where he showed off his dance moves. Remember, he was doing all of that stuff.
Oh, okay.
And then This World Was Mine came on. Remember? Okay. And then he came over. But remember, he was doing all that karate looking stuff. And then also it was three bets. The first bet was to grab Alicia's butt. The second one was who's going to get the most phone numbers at the dance. And remember, the third one was who was going to lose their virginity first.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So that was fun. So that was the 3. So Winston-Salem, we were right, but I think he did have something with Charlotte on or something like that, or something that said North Carolina. Yeah. But because it ain't no Winston-Salem team, so maybe. But Charlotte wasn't a team back then either.
He might have had the University of North Carolina colors on.
That's what I think, because I don't think Charlotte Hornets were out back. I can't remember. I remember when Charlotte Hornets came out.
In '99, they were a team.
Yeah, they were. They were
in the league by then. Not that long. They haven't been in the league that long, I don't believe, but they will.
Because I remember that. That's when you're older, when you realize. Because I remember when they added all those new ones. The Toronto and Charlotte, like when they added all those new teams to the NBA.
Yeah.
And now it's like these young people just think that they always been an NBA team.
Yep.
Yep. So, all right. So let's talk about with the wood. So finally, what happens when they finally get to go to cleaners? They get their clothes back. They finish washing at Tanya's house. They finish eating their pizza, and they're talking to Roland about getting married and if Lisa is the one and all of that stuff. So I think they make the phone call to the house.
Yeah,
Remember?
yeah. I think to let
Because
them know
Big
that they
Mike
were
makes
on
the
their
phone
way.
call.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Big Mike makes the phone call and they're like, "Where are you?" And then Lisa Ray is the one who plays Lisa at the end. And that was Lisa Ray, like in the beginning of Lisa Rayism. But
Lisa
she
Ray.
she was just like wondering, and she was wondering where he was, and she was blaming Slim, and then talking about the cold feet and all of that. So that I don't know, how did that scene make you feel when all of them were still there and they were all family? Like I like that scene when everybody was still, like I was saying earlier, all the mamas, all the people were still together. Like what you think about that scene?
Well, no, but that's the say the authenticity of that kind of feeling that you had when you think about it. You think about the relationship between Roland, Mike, and Slim. That and like you said, even their moms, because they all were
Mm-hmm.
intertwined. They all knew each other. So them
Mm-hmm.
being at a wedding, that was just like being at one of your paternal family members' weddings. You know,
Yeah.
and everything like that. It had that feeling to it, and it added the genuineness of the movie because
Mm-hmm.
of all the stuff. Even and I don't know if we're going to go into this when they get to the house, and Lisa Ray is up in, I guess, the room getting dressed and everything like
Mm-hmm.
that, and and um and Roland is getting ready to go into the room, and they're like, "No, you need to stay out here." And Mike says, of course, like you said, the mediator, the calm one. Mike is like, "Let me deal with this." And even Slim was like, "Well, let me go." He's like, "No, Slim, you need to stay out here
Right.
too, because she don't
Right.
like you anyway.
Right.
She don't like you anyway." Mike
Right.
was like, "No, I'll go in, talk to her, see where kind of smooth over everything, try and smooth over everything, and then see what we can do." And that's what Mike does. He goes in, and of course Lisa Ray goes on her rant, about about Roland, and if he don't want to marry her, then he don't need to. She gonna be all right and everything like that, and stuff. And Mike smooths it over, and Mike smooths it over, and then Roland comes in. I'm not Roland. Slim comes in, and Slim comes in, and of course him and Lisa have that banter that they had probably throughout the
Yeah.
whole,
Yeah.
the
That
whole
Martin and
relationship.
That
Yeah,
Martin and Pam
and
kind of
Pam
thing.
type. Yeah, absolutely right, exactly. And so they smooth everything out, and she decides to tell that they're going to move forward with the wedding and everything like that. and
Mm-hmm.
and I like
Mm-hmm.
how they did it, where when Mike and Roland come out the room, and Mike puts his head down, and Roland is they both got this look on their face like, dude, it just it and then they t-
Right.
then they tell him that that the wedding is on. But even before
Yeah.
that, when Lisa's father has Roland jacked up to the door, has him
Right.
has him jacked up to the door, and he's like, "Lisa, I want to apologize."
Right. Then we talk baby Mike and Sanaa Lathan. So then
Yes,
later
yes.
at the wedding, you see Sanaa Lathan. And I'm like, who is Sanaa Lathan? Because I'm no, we know who Sanaa Lathan is. She was just really kicking off her career. She was on sitcoms, Family Matters, and a lot of different sitcoms, Sister. But I don't know if that was out before then or after, but she was early in her career. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I wonder who she is.
Right.
Because again, with the casting, I would have never guessed in a million years she
Mm-hmm.
was Alicia. To have, even though in real life, Melinda Williams is older than Sanaa Lathan. That's a trivia for you. Because they're all, because Melinda Williams just turned 50. It had this year or late last year. And then, look, I'm putting myself in it. Then I'll be 50 in June. And then Sanaa Lathan will be 50 in September. So Melinda Williams is older than both of us. So I thought that's another thing with Black. We have all of these beautiful Black women playing all of these younger characters. Yeah. In high school when they're 30. Think about Gabrielle Union and Bring It On. Like, she was playing a high schooler and she was an adult. You know, we have that Bianca Lawson, same thing. Like, so many different women. And we're talking about Melinda Williams and Sanaa Lathan, even in Love and Basketball, playing younger. So they have the ability to do all that. All that being said, and me appreciating all the good Blackness and Black Don't Crack and all the, youthfulness of Black folks, that wasn't a good one. With how Melinda Williams was Melinda Williams Alicia, and then she turned out to be Sanaa Lathan. So that blew. I was like, who is that? Did you know who it was right away?
Yeah, I had an idea that it was that's who she was, just because of the way that the movie had flowed. They had shown everybody who was, who had gotten older and everything like that, and it made sense to have her come back at the end, at the end of the movie, to kind of bring her. Now, like you said, I think maybe because Melinda was playing she was playing a teenager. She's playing a teenager. You got to think, in that movie, she was playing a teenager. So they had to dress younger. But like you said, the color thing, just because Melinda is more brown or skin than Sanaa Lathan. So it didn't make sense to me as far as that. But they did, try to make Melinda look younger because she was playing a teenager. And then they probably could have done
I get. It's just the... Yeah, I get that, but it's just the matching.
Like you said, I think it had more to do with the skin tone, because Sanaa was a little lighter. Was she a little lighter than? Yeah, she was lighter than Melinda was, and she just didn't look. She didn't look old. She didn't look like she was as old as, let's say, Omar Epps and
Richard T. and
T. And even Tamala Jones. Tamala Jones looked, now if they had made Tamala Jones her, that might have been a little different. You know what I'm saying? It made a little more sense. But but she even looked more mature than what Sanaa looked very young.
So let's cast it. Let's recast it. So who would we choose? Let's think about the women in Hollywood. Yeah. So who would we have chosen for the older Melinda Williams Alicia character? Let me see. Think about the people now, because if they're going with the same age group, so that's that same age group. So who would have been able to do it? Gabrielle Union's a little younger. Yeah. So I'm thinking about somebody. They could have had but I guess they wanted to have, because Sanaa Lathan didn't have a huge name. They could have had somebody that, Kimberly Elise, no, because that's still maybe not the same complexion.
Yeah, didn't know her.
No, because her first movie was Set It Off.
Because I'm thinking,
I don't know. They could have had a no name who could now be a super big star now.
I'm thinking maybe Vivica Fox. You know what I'm saying?
I can see some of the features. I can see see that.
And Vivica's a little older too, so she would have looked a lot older. She would have looked a little more mature.
Yeah. But Sanaa did look kind of young because Melinda was the same age.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe it was
for the most part.
Maybe it was the haircut too. Maybe
because it was down. Yeah.
It was just kind of I don't know what you call it, hairstyle or whatever, but
it was just out and down. Yeah, maybe they should have gave her a French roll or something, made her look older.
Yeah, to make her look a little older. But I'm trying to, that's a good one, because any of the young, I mean, shoot, I'm thinking maybe even Regina King, but I don't know.
That could have worked. That could have worked.
I think
that could have worked. Similar complexions, both pretty girls. Yeah. That could have worked. Yeah. That could have worked. Maybe she was booked, because she'd been acting since she was a child. Maybe she was booked.
Right. And you never know who auditioned for that particular part at that time.
That's true.
and what the what they had to select, who they had to select from, as far as who was going to be available and everything like that. So, but yeah, but I think Regina King
I
could have
wonder.
could have been the older
No,
Alicia.
go ahead.
No, I'm just saying I think Regina King could have been the older Alicia. You know,
I think you might have a winner.
yeah,
I think that probably I would agree with that.
yeah,
I was trying to see, that would have been nice to see, but they keep that under wraps, like who
yeah. Who
auditioned for
auditioned?
that. We'll find out in certain people's interviews, like, oh, I remember I passed up the role as Alicia on the Wood.
Right,
Like you hear people
right,
dropping stuff
right,
as it
right,
goes.
right.
But yeah, that was different. So when you think about the Wood as we wind it down, what was your biggest takeaway from that movie, and why is that in your top 5?
Well, I think when I think of it, I think of friendships. You know, those friendships and relationships that have lasted through time. I mean, we're older now, so a lot of our friends, some of our friends have passed on. You know, so we think about we think about them and what we grew up in. I have a couple of my friends from high school or from the where I lived at that I'm still friends with today. All of us grew up
Mm-hmm.
around in that '80s together. That we're still
Yeah,
friends and still communicate with each other. We still communicate
yeah,
with each other, and we actually have talked about getting together just to have well, I guess once the pandemic's gone, but just having dinner, just to catch up and kind of see each other, even though we talk we'll talk through Facebook and stuff like that, but to actually kind of hang out with each other for a little bit because we all have our careers. They have families and stuff. Some have families
yeah,
and stuff like that, and doing different things. So it may that's the first thing is the
yeah,
friendship and relationship that we have. So that's why I connected with it. But then, like I said, it was one of those good movies where you didn't have any shooting, no killing, and really, I don't think there was any cursing. There was too much cursing in it either. It wasn't, if I recall,
not a lot, not that I
yeah,
remember.
that I remember, there wasn't a lot of cursing in it. So
Mm-mm.
it was a good family movie, but it also just taught you about that coming of age type of movie that makes you think about the music.
Yeah,
You think about the music, you think about that time growing up and the things that you did and the
yeah,
friends that you had and stuff like that. So that's why it's in my top 5.
yeah.
How about you?
And I think those are I like, well, Richard T. Jones.
Well, yeah. Okay.
That's why. That's why. No, but I like the Wood. He's like one of my favorites, been one of my favorites forever. He's like, I have two, him and Dwayne Martin. Both of those are, when I think about like you were talking about the crushes, those are mine. They're totally different. It's just something about, I guess, the swag, the laugh, the style. It's just something about them. So of course, when I saw him, he was going to be in the movie. And then also, like I was saying earlier, I just like coming of age stories and anything. Like I'm like Issa Rae. I'm voting for everybody black. If I see a black movie, and it looks good, then I'm like, I'm going to the movies. And going to the movies was just one of my favorite pastimes since I was a kid. And even now, I love going to the movies. So of course, I haven't been to the movies all for forever now because of COVID, and some of them are open back up, but I still
Right.
haven't gone. But I love going to the movies, especially now how they've revamped them with the seating and the food, and the waitress and server service and all of that. So I love going to the movies. And so I was excited when I saw any black movie, when I saw the especially in the 90s, like we talk about, seeing the ads, it's like, oh, I'm going to see that. And then it looked good. It looked funny. The music was playing. If Their
Right.
Swirl Was Mine, that's one of my favorites. And seeing the whole trailer made me want to go to the movies to see that and really see young black men and brotherhood, and being able to start off as children and still being friends, and tight friends and holding each other accountable and all of those good friendships. those traits that you see. And even when one was weak, the other one was strong. And, you know, then like you said in the beginning, you got men of all kinds, like, you know, somebody like them. So it felt very familiar. Then when I seen like, oh, Tamala Jones is going to be in it. Oh, Lisa Ray's going to be in it. Sanaa Lathan's going to be in it. They got, they got everybody in this movie. I was excited to, you know, go check it out to see what it's about. And of course, like you and like all of these other movies, we done seen them like 52 times. You know, we don't even have to really do research on these movies. And that's when you know that it's a classic Black film, right? When you can just, you know, recall them and haven't seen them for years, and you could just recall the movies and the scenes and what made you laugh, what made you smile, and you know, think about the foolishness of it all.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's good.
Yeah, no, it really is good. And like you said, this just had a really good, it was another one of those feel good movies that was positive. You know, if you notice, all of our movies have been positive Black movies from the 80s and 90s and into the 2000s. They've all been positive. They've all had a positive look for Black men and Black women in there, you know. So that's really important, and that's when, you know, in the late 80s going into the 90s, that's when we started demanding more of these kinds of, you know, more of these kinds of movies. So
that's so true.
You know, and this built the careers of a lot of folks. Like you said, we look back at these movies now and we see the careers of these actors and actresses and be like, oh wow, they've had a long career, because some of them are still, you know, still actively acting, you know. So
that's true. That's true. And we look back, that's absolutely true. And I like the fact that all the movies that we've chosen so far, from Love Jones to Boomerang to Soul Food and so on and so on and so on, you all check out those, because we did several of these thus far, talking about some of your favorite movies. But what I like about all of them is that it shows us in different lights and different, you know, we're layered people. So we're not always growing up with a family like Soul Food or Love Jones. We might not meet, you know, that love of our life yet, or loving basketball. Maybe you weren't into sports. Maybe you didn't go to college, or the wood. Maybe you didn't grow up in the hood, but you can still relate to them. Waiting to Exhale, you know, when it was really the women waiting to exhale, but the women really needed to exhale, and the men weren't the bad characters, if you will, or the toxic characters. It was the women. So having them look at themselves, you know, in different ways, all kind of things, you know. I think that they show and depict something different. Coming to America, and so on and so on and so on. It shows us, and Boomerang showed us as, you know, owners of corporations. So I think that all the movies, like you said, have some positivity in them and some depth to them. And those are the stories that we like, you know. It's not the blaxploitation movies, and all we want to see is, you know, every Black man is a drug dealer, every Black woman is a hooker or a hoe or prostitute, you know, and that's it. Or you the mammy or the nanny, you know. We see different things. So that's what the 90s and the early 2000s brought us, a plethora of movies like this that we want to see. So now they know, because they used to say, well, we don't make them because Black people are not going to see that, or Black people are not going to want to go to the movies. And we prove them wrong time and time again. We want to see people that look like us, or the people that we know. And that's what we're seeing in The Wood, and, you know, everything else. But this was a good one. Another one for the books, Leroy.
Absolutely. And The Wood, everybody knows, you know, we grew up there, all of us that can have, whether it's Inglewood, or whether it's, you know, whatever community that we grew up in, it's those memories that mean the most, you know what I'm saying? That mean the most to us and everything like that. And that's what these movies are about. So yeah, this is definitely this was definitely a good one to be able to talk about and reminisce about and everything and go through. So
absolutely, because think about that. You growing up in Baltimore, me growing up in South Jersey, that movie from Inglewood, California. My husband used to live in Inglewood, California. So you think about that, and that's the West Coast, and you think about that's a whole different hood. and everything, but you can still see similarities whether you're in Inglewood or Baltimore or New Jersey. You still see the same type of things growing up, you know, and you know the same things we think may be funny or you know or cute or what have you. So that's why I think, like all the movies, it was relatable. So everybody, this was more than just a movie where we break down classic Black films. This week is The Wood. Go back and check out the other ones, but most importantly, subscribe, 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 and tell your friends and families about this show. Matter of fact, share them with them. Don't be stingy. You're not the only one that should be able to see this. They should see us on a weekly basis every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Anything you want to say, Leroy, before we roll out?
Nope, I think this is good. This has been another one. There's another one, and we'll have
another one in the book.
Another.
So, Leroy, like they say, which movie are we going to do next? Will it be Poetic Justice, Brown Sugar, which is one of my absolute favorites, Boys in the Hood?
I like
we got to
sugar.
Talk about that. What you think? Brown Sugar it is.
I like brown sugar.
It's no convincing for me. Y'all already know Sanaa Lathan is one of my favorites, and all her movies, I'm here for them. That's my youngest daughter and I. Our favorite movie is one of them is Brown Sugar. When did you fall in love with hip hop? Oh, I can't wait till next week.
Absolutely. So Boogie down, Bronx.
Back for Brown. Can be a guest in that one because she knows that movie in and out, and so do I. So next week, Brown Sugar it is. All right, good night, good night, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you're watching this. If you're watching it live, this is the afternoon. So thank you so much for watching this episode of More Than Just a Movie right here on my channel. This is Kendell Lenice Live. God bless. Thanks, Leroy.
Absolutely.
All right.